Okay, let me set the scene. You've done everything right up to this point. You've spent months on your design. You collected your bids. You've compared them line by line. And you finally picked your contractor. We'll call him Tad. Tad seems like a nice guy. Firm handshake, good energy, says all the right things. And as you are wrapping up that last meeting, Tad leans in a little, lowers his voice just a touch, and says, "You know what? If you pay cash, I can take 10% off the whole thing." 10% on a $130,000 kitchen remodel? That's 13,000 bucks. And your brain lights up like a pinball machine. 13 grand? That could pay for every appliance in the room, maybe. That could be the range, the refrigerator, the dishwasher, and money left over for that backsplash you thought you couldn't afford. So you're sitting there feeling like you just won the lottery. And the question you should be asking, the question almost nobody asks in this moment, is simple. Why in the world would Tad just hand you $13,000? That right there is the question this whole episode is built around, because Tad is not handing you anything. When something feels like free money in construction, somebody is always going to pay for it. And more often than not, that somebody is you. You just cannot see the bill yet. It hasn't arrived, but it's coming. And I want you to know this is not the same rare thing that happens once in a blue moon. In the broader industry, somewhere between 1 and 2 million construction workers are being paid off the books at any given time. By some estimates, that is close to 1 in 5 people swinging a hammer in this country. So the cash offer you just got is not some weird one-off. It's a system, a well-worn groove that a whole slice of the industry runs in. Today, you are going to understand that system from the inside, the way I have seen it after 35 plus years. And here's my promise for the next half hour. By the time we are done, you will know 3 things. You will know exactly why Tad can offer you 10. You will know what you are really risking when you say yes. And trust me, it is a whole lot more than people ever realize. And you will know how to protect yourself and keep the bidding on your project fair and honest. Let us start with that 10%, because the math behind it tells you everything you need to know. All right, let's get back to that moment at the kitchen table. Tad offers 10% for cash, and it feels like a gift. And I want to slow this moment way down, because the feeling you have in that exact second is the same feeling that gets good, smart, careful homeowners into real trouble. And the first thing I want you to notice is how the offer is framed. It is framed as a favor. Tad is doing you a solid. He likes you. You two hit it off. And paying cash feels almost old-fashioned and honest, like a handshake deal the way your grandfather might have done back in the day. There is warmth to it, a little bit of nostalgia. That framing is doing a lot of quiet work on your brain. And I promise you, it is designed to. The whole offer is built to make you feel like 2 of you are on the same team, outsmarting the system together. But think hard about what is actually being asked. A legitimate business, one that pays its taxes and carries its insurance, has a roughly fixed cost of doing business. That cost does not change based on how you hand over the money. Whether you pay by check, by card, or by wire transfer, Tad's real costs are exactly the same. The lumber costs what it costs. The labor costs what it costs. So when a 10% discount magically appears the second you say the word cash, that discount is not coming out of thin air. And it's not coming out of Tad's profit. It is coming out of something Tad has just quietly decided he is no longer going to pay for. And that is the part I really want to land here. This is not mainly a story about saving a few bucks. It is a story about the integrity of the person standing in your kitchen. The cash offer is a little window, and through it, you are getting an honest peek at how this person does business when he thinks no one is watching. Stop and really hear that. A contractor who is comfortable operating outside the rules with the government, with the IRS, with the insurance system, is going to be just as comfortable operating outside the rules with you when things get tense halfway through your job. The cash offer is not a perk, it's a personality test. And Tad just failed it. Now, I'm not telling you that Tad is a cartoon villain twirling his mustache. A lot of the folks who make this offer have talked themselves into believing it's totally normal, that everybody does it, that it's a harmless little arrangement between friends. But I have stood at the far end of this road many times over the years, and I can tell you, there are victims. The trouble is, they don't show up at the kitchen table. They show up months later, long after the $13,000 has been spent and forgotten, when the homeowner is staring at a problem that they never saw coming. So before you get anywhere near the bank to pull out a pile of cash, I want you to understand the machine you would be stepping into. And it all starts with that one simple question we keep circling back to. How on earth can Tad give away 10% of a $130,000 job and still want the work? Let us pull back that curtain on that next. Okay, here's the engine room. To hand you a 10% cash discount, Tad needs the money to disappear. It cannot run through his accounting system because the only way to truly hide income is to keep it off the books entirely. The envelope of cash never becomes a deposit, never shows up on the statement, never gets recorded anywhere. And once that money is off the books, look at everything Tad suddenly no longer has to pay for. He is not paying income tax on it. That money is invisible now. So as far as the government is concerned, he never earned it. He is not running it through payroll, which means he is not paying the payroll taxes on the workers he puts on your job. And this is the big one. So I want you to underline it twice. If he is not running that money through payroll, then he is not paying workers' compensation insurance on those workers either. Hold on to that, because workers' comp is going to come roaring back in a huge way in just a few minutes. And it is the single most important reason to never do this. So now do the real math with me here. But by skipping the income taxes, the payroll taxes, the workers' comp, and the liability insurance, Tad is not actually saving 10%. The folks who study this for a living put the real number much higher. It's probably closer to 30% of his costs. 30. So follow the money. Tad saves around 30. He hands you back 10, and he quietly pockets the other 20 for himself. You walked away thinking you got the deal of the century. What you actually got were the leftover of Tad's plate, and you got to carry all the risk besides. Now here is where it gets personal for me, and where I want you to think about fairness for a minute, because this is the part that does not get talked about enough. Let's go back to when you were collecting your bids. So there was another contractor in the running. We'll call her the honest one. Her bid came in higher than Tad's, maybe $15,000, $20,000 higher. And at that time, that probably irritated you a little. Why is she so much more expensive? Is she gouging me? Well, now you know the answer. She was not more expensive. She was simply telling you the truth. Her price included the income tax she actually pays, the payroll she actually runs, the workers' comp and the liability insurance that, by the way, exists to protect you. Tad's lower number was not skill. It was not efficiency. It was not some clever trick of the trade. He sandbagged his bid by deciding to cheat, and you almost rewarded him for it. That is exactly what I mean when I talk about fair bidding. When Tad lowballs a job by working under the table, he is not just gambling with your safety and your money. He is making it flat out impossible for the honest contractor to compete. She plays by the rules, prices the job correctly, and loses it to a guy who does not play by the rules at all. And if that happens to her enough times, she either starts cutting corners herself just to survive, or she goes out of business. Either way, you lose, because over time, that dynamic pushes the good, legitimate, fully insured builders out of the market. And it leaves you, the homeowner, swimming in a pool full of people who cut corners for a living. So when you reward the honest bid, even though it costs you a little more upfront, understand what you are really doing. You are protecting yourself, yes, but you are also helping keep the whole trade honest. And you are keeping good people in the business so they are still around the next time you or your neighbor or your kids need them. That matters more than people think. So, all right, you understand the why. Tad can offer 10% because he is cheating on a much bigger number, and he is offloading all the risks onto you. So let's talk about exactly what the risk costs you, straight with the one that can wipe out your savings in a single afternoon, your safety. So let me ask you something. And I want you to really think about your honest gut answer. When Tad's crew is up on a ladder framing your second story, or down in a trench running new plumbing, or on the roof in the rain, who is responsible if one of them gets seriously hurt? Your gut probably says, well, that's the contractor's problem. It's his guy, his job, his responsibility, not mine. I really, truly wish that were always true. But when there is no workers' comp in place, it is very often not true at all. And the homeowners who learn that the hard way never forget it. So first, let us be clear about something. Construction is genuinely dangerous work. In this country, more than 1 in 5 of all the worker injuries happen in construction. Think about that. Of every kind of job there is, construction is where a huge share of the serious injuries land. We are talking tens of thousands of significant injuries every single year just among the trades. Falls from height, nail guns, table saws, trench collapses, electrocution. This is not a freak event that only happens to other people. People get hurt building and remodeling houses. It is really part of the reality of the work. Now, here's the piece almost no homeowner really truly understands, and it really is kind of the whole ball game here. Workers' compensation insurance exists to cover a worker who gets hurt on the job. It pays the medical bills, and it replaces the lost wages while they recover. But that insurance does not just protect the worker. It protects you, because in many states, the law says that if the contractor who hired that worker does not carry workers' comp, then the responsibility does not just vanish. It rolls uphill to the next person in line. And when you have hired an uninsured contractor, I want you to guess who that person next in line is. In the eyes of the law, you can suddenly be treated as the employer of that injured worker. Sit with that. So what does this really mean in real life? A man falls off your roof. He breaks his back. He cannot work for 2 years. His medical bills climb into 6 figures. And on top of that, there is lost wages for all the time he cannot earn a living. And because Tad never carried a dime of workers' comp, you, the homeowner, can be the one on the hook for all of it. Your $13,000 discount just turned into a number with a lot more zeros on it and a lawyer attached to it. And do not for 1 second assume your homeowner's policy is going to swoop in and rescue you. This is where people get a second nasty surprise stacked right on top of the first. A lot of homeowners insurance policies specifically exclude injuries to uninsured workers, especially when you knew or reasonably should have known that the person you hired was not properly licensed and insured. So the very coverage you have been faithfully paying for every single month can look at this exact situation and say, sorry, not our problem. You knowingly brought an uninsured crew onto your property. You own this one. And I want to add one more layer because the cash crowd rarely stops at the main contractor. Tad probably brings in his own subcontractors. And a lot of those subs are uninsured too, even on the jobs where the main guy looks legitimate on paper. So you can have multiple uninsured bodies on your property at once, any one of whom could turn into a 6-figure problem for you. That is the kind of exposure you are taking on to save that 10%. And this is also just a really good indicator of the type of person that you're hiring, because people that operate their business like that, although not necessarily criminals, although they are technically committing a crime, these can be okay people, nice people. They're just not operating their business properly. And then you've got the real dirtbags that do it intentionally to skirt the system. And it's a reflection of who they are and how successful they are their level of integrity. So keep in mind that when that word comes up, that is who you're dealing with. That's a real indicator of who you're dealing with. And be prepared. There's a high risk. And it really doesn't stop at injuries. Let's say the job gets done, the cash quietly changes hands, everybody moves on, and nobody gets hurt. You dodged it, right? Maybe. Then a year later, you have an electrical fire, or a slow leak rots out a wall behind the new cabinets. You file an insurance claim. And in the course of the investigation, your insurer discovers the work was done under the table with no permits by an unlicensed crew. They can deny that claim outright. So now you are paying for the fire damage and you are paying to redo the original work, all to save the 10% that was never really yours to begin with. So that is the safety side of this whole thing. And honestly, it is the one that scares me the most because it can be financially catastrophic, the kind of thing that follows a family for years. But even if nobody ever gets hurt, even if you sail through with no fire and no leak, the cash trap has a second set of teeth. And those teeth bite you in the paperwork, sometimes years down the road when you least expect it. Let's go there next. So in our last few episodes in this contract series that I'm still working on here, we did a lot of good work together. We talked about who you are actually signing with and how to make sure the money on the page is even real. We talked about change orders and how to keep them from blowing up your budget. And last time we built out the payment schedule, that beautiful document that ties each payments to a completed piece of work, so you always know what you are paying for and when. A cash deal takes every bit of that careful work and throws it straight in the trash. Think about it. The whole point of a documented payment schedule is that there is a clean record. You paid them this much on this date, this specific completed milestone. Both sides agreed to it, and both sides have proof. Now picture the cash version of that. You hand Tad a fat envelope in your driveway. There is no contract because a contract would create a paper trail Tad desperately does not want. And this is even worse. Sometimes contractors do have a paper trail, but then they take cash. And this exposes them to the IRS and insurance fraud investigators even more so. There is no receipt because writing you a receipt would be evidence against him, evidence that he had received money he is hiding. So there is just you and Tad and your memory of what happened. And the memory, let me tell you, is a terrible contract. 3 months from now, when there is a disagreement about whether you already paid for the tile or exactly how much that last payment was supposed to cover, it's your word against his with absolutely nothing in the middle to settle it. No document, no canceled check, no signature. And I've watched this turn into ugly, drawn-out, relationship-ending messes. And the homeowner almost always comes out the worse for it because they cannot prove a single thing. With a cash deal, the door to conflict is just left wide open. And it's been kicked clean off the hinges. And there's no warranty recourse either. When work fails 6 months later and you have a real signed contract, you have something solid to stand on. You can point to the document and say, you agreed to this, but when the whole job was a cash handshake in the driveway, what exactly are you going to enforce? You have nothing in writing that says Tad ever agreed to do anything at all, let alone come back and fix it. But here's the one that almost nobody really thinks about, and it can quietly cost you the most of all. It's taxes, and not in the way you're probably bracing for. When you sell your home someday, the government looks at your profit on the sale. They take what you sold it for. They subtract what is called your basis, and the difference is your gain, and that gain can get taxed. Now, most people get a generous exclusion built in. A single owner can shield up to $250,000 of gain from the tax. And a married couple can shield up to, I think it's $500,000. But in plenty of markets, and I'm looking right at us here in California, homeowners blow past those numbers all the time, especially if they've owned the place for a while and the value has climbed. And the moment you go past that exclusion, here's what saves you. Every dollar of documented improvements you made to that house gets added to your basis, and a higher basis means a lower taxable gain. Now, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a CPA, but that's my personal experience, and it's well worth looking into because it could be a huge difference if you don't account properly for everything that you've spent on your home. So that $130,000 kitchen is not just a kitchen. It is potentially $130,000 you get to add to your basis, which can save you very real money when you sell. So let me give you a rough, simple example so you feel it. Say you put $75,000 of documented improvements into your home over the years. When you sell, that could knock something like $11,000 right off your tax bill. That is real money in your pocket. But, and this is the whole thing, only if you can prove it. The government wants to see it in black and white. They want the receipts, the invoices, the canceled checks, the permits. They want documentation. The same documentation on a cash deal is specifically designed to never create. So what does a cash job actually leave you holding? Nothing. No invoice, no canceled check, no permit, no proof the work ever happened or that you ever paid a dime for it in a true cash deal. So that 10% you thought you saved at the start could quietly cost you far more than $13,000 years later when you go to sell. Because on paper, you cannot prove you spent anything on the place at all. And that permit point deserves its own moment because it stings on its own. The cash crowd almost always skips permits, since pulling a permit creates exactly the kind of record they are avoiding. But unpermitted work comes back to haunt you when you try to sell. A sharp buyer's agent finds it. The inspector flags it, and suddenly it can scare off your buyer, delay your closing, or knock your value down while you scramble to fix it. So between the missing paper trail, the lost warranty, the tax basis you can never claim, and the permits you never pulled, the records problem all by itself is a reason enough to walk away from a cash deal. Which brings us finally to the good part, what you actually do instead. So let's turn this whole thing around and make it practical. Here is how you protect yourself and keep the bidding on your project honest, all at the same time. 4 steps, and none of them are really that hard. Step 1, verify the license and insurance before anyone lifts a single finger on your project. We spent a whole episode on this earlier in the series, so I will keep it tight here. Ask for proof of the license and the proof of insurance that includes workers' comp, not just general liability. And here's the part people skip. Do not just take the certificate he hands you and call it good. Call the insurance carrier listed on that certificate and confirm with your own ears that that policy is actually active right now. I have seen folks flash a real certificate and then cancel the policy the very next week to get their money back. A real licensed, properly insured contractor will not blink at this request because they have absolutely nothing to hide. The only person who fights you on it is a person with something to hide. Step 2, insist on a written contract and that documented payment schedule we built together last time. Every payment tied to a completed, inspected piece of work. And pay by check or a card or some traceable method so there is a clean record sitting on both sides of the deal. If a contractor flatly will not put the agreement in writing, that is not a misunderstanding you can work through. That is a contractor you do not want anywhere near your home. Step 3, make sure that people behind the scenes are actually getting paid. When there is a deposit for special materials, things like custom windows or cabinets that have to be ordered way ahead of time, ask who the supplier is and ask for acknowledgement from that supplier that they were actually paid. You want to know with certainty that your money is landing exactly where it's supposed to land and not vanishing into somebody's pocket on the way there. That one habit closes off a whole category of problems. And step 4, which is really the beating heart here of everything we've talked about today. If a contractor pushes the cash idea hard, if there is pressure or a manufactured sense of urgency or a little wink and a nudge about keeping it just between the two of you, let that pressure be your answer. The push itself is the red flag. A legitimate builder is simply not going to lean onto you to break the rules because they do not need to and they will not risk it. So you smile, you thank them for their time, and you walk. No drama, no lecture. You just walk. Because here is the reframe I want to leave you holding on to. When you choose the contractor who bids honestly, who carries the insurance, who happily puts it all in writing, you are quietly doing two powerful things at the very same time. You are protecting your family, your money, and your home from a disaster you would never really see coming. And you are casting a vote with your own dollars for the kind of contractor who actually deserves to stay in business. That is how the bidding stays fair. That is how the good ones survive long enough to be there when you need them. Every single time a homeowner says no to the cash trap, the whole industry gets just a little bit more honest. You have more power here than you really think. Now, to make all this dead simple to put into practice, I put together a free one-page checklist that walks you through exactly how to vet a contractor's license and insurance, how to handle the payment so you stay fully protected, and the specific warning signs that you are being quietly pulled into a cash deal. It is completely free, and I will tell you exactly where to grab it in just a second. So let me bring this all the way home for you. When Tad offers you 10% to pay cash, remember what is really happening underneath that friendly smile. He is saving closer to 30% by skipping the taxes and the insurance that exist to protect you. You are the one taking on the risk if a worker gets hurt on your property. You are throwing away your paper trail, your warranty, your tax basis, and you are helping push the honest contractors right out of business. 10% is just the bait. You are the ones who pay the real bill. That free checklist I mentioned is waiting for you. You will find the link sitting right in the show notes, and you can grab it along with my other free sources. I have my little story, The Tale of Two Homeowners, which is just a little entertaining fiction story, and it's all there in one place for you. And you can always go deeper on this in my book, The Awakened Homeowner. It covers contracts and payments in real detail. Section 3.218 gets right into the cash trap we talked about today. You can find the book on Amazon and all the other major platforms. And it's just a good guide to have by your side as you're thinking about your project. And if you've got a question you'd like me to answer right here on the show, email me directly. That address is in the show notes too. And if this is the kind of step-by-step planning that helps you sleep better at night, this is exactly what we are building over at BuildQuest, our planning platform. And I call him Quinn, our AI planning assistant. He walks you through this whole process one step at a time so you know the right questions to ask before you ever sit down at the kitchen table with Tad. You can reserve your spot for the beta testing at buildquest.co. Now, I think I am going to go next time. We're going to dive into insurance because this is kind of correlates, and it is going to be wrapping up the contract process. And we touched on it today when we got into workers' comp, but there's a whole other half to protecting yourself. And it's the coverage that stands between you and a real disaster on your own project. And you're really not going to want to miss it. So until then, this has been your home building coach, and I'm Bill Reid, and I'm here to enlighten, empower, and protect you. So let's go make it happen.